Here we go, brand new unit. We're going to do unit 6, which is all about exponents and exponential functions. Before we go into that and we talk about our first concept, which is monomials, adding and subtracting and multiplying, I want you to go back in your journal where we did combining like terms. And that is all that this page is about. It's just combining like terms. I can't combine 2x with 3y because those are different terms. So remember, our rule is when we combine like terms, everything about them has to be the same. 3x and 4x can be combined for 7x, but a 3x and a 4y, you can't combine them. So when we start here and we're talking about monomials, remember, what is a monomial? It is one term. Sorry guys, hang on. Want to make sure that you have the right words in your journal. So, a monomial is a number or a variable or a product of a number and variable. So notice what this word says. It says product. So we know product means multiplication. So some examples of that is 4. 4 is a monomial. It's a number. I can have a variable, which is x. That's one variable. X, Y, Z could also be a number. Notice the word product. It's all of these together makes it one term. It could be 4xy squared. That's one term. It could be 1/2 x to the 5th power. That's one term. So that's a product all combined. So they're being multiplied, but it's still one term. So monomials with the same variables and exponents are called like terms. And we have already been over this earlier in the year, so it should be an easy concept to grasp. So when we add or subtract monomials, our goal here is that all we're going to do is combine like terms. We do not change the variable or the exponent. That stays the same. You cannot be changing them. You're simply combining them. So if we look here, 17x minus 25x, that is negative 8x. Notice my variable doesn't change. I'm just combining them. Negative 23y squared plus 6y squared is negative 17y squared. My variable does not change. So I'm going to do the odd ones. If you want to jump ahead and then check back to make sure your answers are correct, you can go ahead and do that. I may be speeding over this because we've already done it. So in your journal, I do want you to go back where it says combining like terms and just kind of review what we did there. So number 3, negative 15a cubed bc plus 6a cubed bc would be negative 9, but my variable does not change. These are simply monomials being combined. Exponents, variables don't change. So here, do AB and AC match up? No, it's not the same term. These are unlike terms. I can't combine them. So my answer is just that, 2AB plus 9AC. I can't do anything there. My variables are the same, so how do I subtract? 2/5 minus 1/3. Remember, don't be afraid of the fraction. You got a common denominator, negative 5, 6, so it's 1/15 CD squared. So remember, you're adding and subtract fractions just the same as you always would, but my variable doesn't change. Number 9, I have 7y plus 6z. Number 11, I have 13w squared and 4w squared. That's the same. So that's 17w squared. And then I have a positive 9w and a negative 31w, which makes it negative 22w. So on this, it's asking, find the sum of 16y squared and negative 5y squared. So its sum is addition, but look what we have here, a positive and a negative. I have more positives, so it's 11y squared. make sure you rewrite this because here's where it can get tricky. And I'm going to do number 15 and 16 so you can see the difference. It says subtract 9a from negative 15a. This is a turnaround word. So it's negative 15a. I'm subtracting 9a from negative 15a, which means a negative 24a. Now, look at number 16. We're going over 16 because you could see this on a quiz. So highlight this one. This is a big deal. So if I am from negative 9cd squared, subtract negative 2cd squared. See what I did there? Subtract a negative. And what happens when you subtract a negative? It becomes positive 2cd squared. So now my variables are the same, and when I combine them, I get negative 7cd squared. Okay? Let's go back. So hopefully adding and subtracting, not new information, just a refresher from the beginning of the year. So this is when we add and subtract. This is when we combine like terms. But what happens when we multiply? What goes on with those exponents? So you did this for a little bit last year, but this is your rule. When you multiply monomials, we use the product rule. So if my variable is the same, I'm going to add my exponents. So the rule is x to the a plus b power. So if I look at 17, my variable is the same, x, and then I add my exponents, 2 to the third, which is 5. And sometimes students say, well, why are we adding? Well, if you looked at this in expanded form, this would be x squared would be 2x's, and x to the third would be 3x's. And how many x's are we multiplying? 5. So it would be x to the 5th. But I don't want to do expanded form, you know, when I have x to the 20th times x to the 13th, because I don't want to write that many x's. So I'm going to add my exponents, and I get x to the 5th. Look over here on 18. You still have a to the 1 power. It's understood. If a is there, it's there. It's a to the 1. So a to the 9th times a to the 1st is a to the 10th. Number 19 would be w to the 11th. 7 plus 4 is 11. All right. So that's the simple rule, is that when variables are the same, we keep the variable, we add those exponents. What happens when you have coefficients? You've been multiplying coefficients all year long. You've been doing it since 3rd grade, 4th grade. When you multiply integers, that doesn't change. You're still going to multiply the integers. So if you look over here at 20, you can't change that. 4 times 3. What is 4 times 3? Well, it's 12. It's always been 12. It will always be 12. So 4 times 3 is 12. And now, look at my variables x. X to the what power? Since I'm multiplying, I add my exponents, and I get x to the 7th. Number 21, I multiply. My coefficients would be 15, x to the 8th. All right, I'm going to do these 8, and then down here for mixed review. So if you want to go ahead and you can check back with your answers, I multiply, I get negative 12, a to the 5th, b to the 6th. That's an understood 1 right there. 24, I get 28, p to the 11th, q to the 9th, r to the 5th. Remember, that's an understood 1 right there. Number 26, I get 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. Y to the 6th power, because y to the 1st is right there. Number 27, you still have a coefficient here. Remember, your coefficient is 1. It's negative 1. So 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. A to the 7th, b to the 3rd. Number 29, I get 42, m to the 3rd, n to the 5th. Number 30, I get 80, c to the 5th, d to the 6th. Number 32, I get negative 3, a to the 3rd, b squared. And number 23, remember, top of your head, what's 12 times 2/3? 3 and 12 cross reduced to 4. 4 times 2 is 8. X, y to the 5th is your answer there. All right, so now let's look on the mixed review. I'm going to, order of operations says I have to multiply first. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply these guys. 8, x to the 6th, y to the 5th. And I'm going to multiply these guys. 3, x to the 6th, y to the 5th. And it's positive. Now I look to see, can I combine these? Are these like terms? Do my variables all match up? X to the 6th, y to the 5th, x to the 6th, y to the 5th. They do. So I'm going to combine them to get 11, x to the 6th, y to the 5th. Remember, when you combine, your exponents don't change. Only when you multiply. So let's look over here at 36. I get 20a to the 4th, b to the 6th, and negative 2a to the 4th, b to the 6th. And it's adding, so it doesn't change that sign. So do my variables line up? They do. So my answer is 18a to the 4th, b to the 6th, because my exponents don't change. All right, let's look at that 37. I'm going to multiply here, and I get 12m to the 8th, n to the 8th, and it's negative because of that sign. And I get 19m to the 8th, n to the 8th. Do my variables? Yes, these are like terms because they're exactly the same. So when I combine them, I get 7m to the 8th, n to the 8th. Variables don't change. And lastly, I get 15c to the 5th, d squared. And over here, I get 14c to the 5th, d squared. And I subtract them. Variables are matching up. These are like terms. So I get c to the 5th, d squared is my answer. Can I put 1c to the 5th, d squared? Yeah, absolutely. My coefficient is still 1. You have 1 left over, and that's fine. Either way is acceptable. Okay, so that's just a quick review that we did online to get you some knowledge before you come into class. And then we're going to be working on this skill as well. So if you struggle with this quick lesson, come see me in tutorials in the morning, and I can give you a few of these because it is. The more you practice it, the more you get it. So come see me.